It is the Dirty Laundry Game Worn Hockey Podcast episode at number 4. We've covered a lot of ground in the first 3. I mean, our last episode, I think, was pretty popular with looking at the St. Louis Blues and their the lawsuit over game-worn goalie equipment and other stuff. We will welcome to the show tonight, speaking of somebody that knows a lot about goalie collecting, the gentleman who runs Heroes of the Crease, goalie. I call it a super museum with the amount of stuff that we see popped out there. Bruce, you already told me, and I'm gonna still screw this up. Csanyi?
Close enough. It's Csanyi, but yes.
I'll eventually have it before the show's out. I apologize, and like I said, I even asked you before we came on the air, and I knew I'd still do it. I should have wrote it down better. How we doing tonight, Bruce?
Doing very well, thank you. Appreciate having me on the show here, and you could just call me Bruce for the rest of the show, and we can just forget that the last name exists there.
Works for me. So first, tell me the background. How did you get started with Heroes of the Crease?
So it is a very long story. I'll try and cut it down for time, obviously. I could write a novel about it. But a long story short, I mean, as I was a kid, as I was growing up, I was a huge fan of goaltending, and I wanted to be an NHL goaltender, but there was one key thing I lacked, and that was any talent whatsoever in goaltending. So then I was still staying a fan of hockey, obviously growing up, following Arturs Urbe, my all-time favorite goalie, and hockey cards were what I initially got into. I mean, what better way to celebrate your fandom of sport than, you collect all the cards of your favorite guy. And for years, I built up it became quite popular, actually. A large Arturs Urbe super collection got published in Beckett magazine and on places like Sports Card Forum. I still have that special tag that says super collector for that former collection. And then one Christmas about, I want to say, long time ago now, probably 15 or so years ago, my dad bought a cool item for me for Christmas. It was an Arturs Urbe game use stick. I had no idea that as a collector, as a person, you could actually get these items that the players wore or used in a game. And then as soon as I got that for Christmas, that sort of changed my world. And I wasn't quite sure even then what I wanted to do. Did I want to stick with goaltending, or I still am a huge Carolina Hurricanes fan. So I was like, should I just go after the Hurricanes? Classic auction came up, and there's one jersey I liked, Mark Fitzpatrick Carolina Hurricanes from 99-2000, which turned out to be his last NHL game-worn jersey. I really liked it, and then had someone bid on it for me because I didn't have an account at the time yet, and then won it. And then I was like, you know what? Goalie jerseys are awesome. Arturs Urbe is awesome. Got 2 now, just a stick and a jersey. And I was like, you know what? Let's go all in. Let's see what we can do. And then eventually the whole idea came out that, you know what? Might as well go all in. Go for one game use piece of every goalie in NHL history who has ever played a game in the regular season or the playoffs. And been at it for quite deep into it now for about 10 years or so. That's when I started to really go heavy into it, and try and go for the collection. And yeah, we've come a long way since.
What got you stuck with Urbe? I mean, there's so many goalies out even at that time. What drew to him?
Okay, fair enough. Fair question. For one, I mean, his distinct look is one that you cannot.
Yeah, you just say his name, everybody gets a picture in their head of what that looked like.
Well, yeah, exactly. His distinct look was one that set him apart among especially in the '90s era there, where the dudes were having the really flashy gear. I mean, one of the features I have on my post or my weekly posts is something called 6 setups, and we were just showing a Curtis Joseph one last week there, and the discrepancy between Urbe and Cujo in terms of design highlights is wild, but makes him stand out in his own unique way, and how thrifty he was, and the mask that the old Jofa, I can't remember which Jofa series cage mask he wore, but that one set him apart so much.
That combo series.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And then also his background being from Eastern Europe, and my family is originally from Hungary. So few countries over, but Europe really isn't that
Sure.
big in the grand scheme of things. So of course appreciated that bit of a connection. He in many ways reminds me of my own dad. So it's like, you kind of see your own family and another player based on their interviews and their mannerisms and how they act and sort of their general outlook on life. And then you just enjoy hearing the stories when they talk to, and it's just you gravitate towards a certain player, and then whenever you see them, that's goaltending for you.
Yep, I know the feeling as we were talking before, and of course you have a piece in your museum, big Mike McKenna collector, same kind of thing is watching him travel through the NHL and the minors and following his pad design and everything else. It's just cool to have that focus, and then since he's retired now, kind of branch out more. And I still do St. Louis Blues stuff, but yeah, still kind of wanting to do some of a goalie focus. So as you started picking up other pieces, what were people reaching out to you, or were you just going to through the auctions and once social media took off, starting to get it through there? Is there any one place you picked it up, or just you wanted to find goalies anywhere you could get them?
So I mean, at first it was a humble beginning of I still call it a hobby. I mean, I run it as a business now, but it started really small. Like, I was known for cards. Was a nobody. I'm still just a dude who in the game worn world. I don't like people calling themselves celebrities or big deals in the game worn world. We're all just guys who collect used shirts at the end of the day. But
Exactly.
but at first it started out, I would share the new pieces I got on various social media just for cards, and then people would refer me to certain forums. There's the old Game One forums. That's where I picked up some of my earliest pieces in the collection. And then there was a few guys. There's Phil Watstein was a big one who helped me add one of the early Mika Nornan jerseys into my museum there ages ago. And then of course people told me about My Gray, classic auctions I'd known about at that point. Game Worn auctions, I haven't really picked up anything from there. Usually moves a few hands and then the LOA comes with it. Ice Violence there, and there's way too much to list.
Oh, sure. But you're right, and part of it, the same way with I am, is it's that hunt to go look through the auctions, look through the social media, other people turning you on to, hey, I think this person's got that, and it's a person you never knew even collected, but they happen to pick up this piece. And it's those, like I've talked even in past podcasts, it's those connections you make with people. And I've had people reach out 2 and 3 years after we've had a discussion about, hey, I'm looking for this. Oh, by the way, I finally found it. Are you interested now?
Right.
It's crazy as you make those connections. And I think that's one of the funnest part of this hobbies.
Oh, absolutely. And especially now that I'm established in it, I often get people reaching out to me, sending messages, tagging me in Facebook posts. Sometimes I have former NHL goalies reaching out to me about pieces that I have in the museum there. And then sometimes that has interesting conversations out of it. So yeah,
that's one of my questions is going, I guess, both ways. Is, have you bought anything directly from pros, or have you, and I know you kind of run the museum as you want to keep everything in house. Have you ever sold stuff back to a player?
Okay, so we'll approach the first one first, which is have I ever gotten anything from a player? So indirectly, yes. Directly, not quite, at least nothing that I can think of off the top of my head. So indirectly, in terms of something like Steve Penny is a great example. When he put up his entire collection on the classic auctions, bought a big lot of his stuff from there. That's one way I'd say indirectly. I got a Bob Froese game worn New York Rangers jersey. Indirectly, as it wasn't from him, but his family had it in their house, and then obviously I got the permission to sell it because he hasn't come after me.
So that's definitely a good thing.
So yeah, indirectly most of the time. A lot of guys, when they have their stuff, don't really want to part with it, or they value it at a number that is, obviously I respect what they think it is worth.
Of course.
And, I mean, the sentimental attachment is really, at the end of the day, worth more than any amount of cash dollars. And then approaching the other way there, have I ever given anything back to a player there? I generally tell anyone who reaches out to me that I don't sell the pieces, and I explain the whole goal of the museum. And what we're trying to do is really have appreciation for every goalie in NHL history. So you played 5 seconds in the NHL, you played 1,000 games to me, you're all you will accomplish something huge. So
Just because
usually after,
you've been there.
exactly. I mean, it's the latest count I have is since the very beginning of the NHL to now, there's only been 839 goalies who have ever played in the NHL, and that's
Wow.
over 100 years of history, and such a minuscule number compared to any other position. So it's a huge accomplishment. And so yeah, a lot of guys, they'll reach out. I tell them I don't sell the item. I always offer, however, unless it's like a super premium piece, like a cup final or an item, always offer a trade. So if they have another jersey or a mask, that I don't mind topping up money on my end to acquire it, or something.
Sure.
Experience.
Let's make a deal here. Yeah. You don't want to,
Exactly, like,
at least want to still have a piece of them in your collection.
absolutely, because a lot of these guys, I mean, you play 2 games in the NHL and I have one of the game used jerseys. I give it away and they don't have anything to trade. I mean, good luck finding anything of theirs ever again. I mean, and as much as sticks are easy to find, they're still not the same to me. They're probably my least favorite of the memorabilia.
Yep, because I mean, especially in the modern stuff, they go through so many sticks. I mean, the older time, they just didn't pump out the equipment like they do now, and like you said,
well, everything was also
with
made to last back then too.
Oh, I mean, yeah,
you could take down Captain America's shield with one of those 1960s game use sticks. Like it's like a tree. They just cut it down and like, all right, use it.
Yeah, this came out of the forest 30 minutes ago. Now use it on the ice.
You still see the sap flowing down it.
Yeah. Why is this so sticky?
Well, at least you don't let go of it. You always paddle
exactly.
down.
And I own one from the 60s, and picking them up, because I do play goalie as well. Picking that up compared to my Bauer stick I have now, I mean, it kills me to pick the thing up almost. My wrist hurts.
But you build up that forearm muscle. It's the same thing with the old goalie pads too. Like just posting last Friday there for our piece of history segment, and then we were using Steve Penny's old leather pads from 1983 as the piece of history there, and one single of those pads weighs about as much as 2 of the regular current pads together. Like, especially when you get sweat in it, just moving around, I can't imagine.
Yeah, the water starts to seep in and suck all that up, and it gains weight as you play. But yeah, the modern goalies are spoiled. I used early on when I would play, I used some of that older stuff, and it's crazy to strap that on now compared to new. And just the style of play being so different, plus just the makeup and the material. It is insane. Even just the stuff I have is from the early to mid 90s. So, I mean, it's not antiques per se, but how far they've come in the equipment.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the evolution of the equipment is craziness, where it was pretty much like cricket shin guards back in the early 1900s to they're almost paper thin now, a lot of these modern goalie pads there, and just so feather light. I mean, it's easy to move around, move laterally, make those saves. Whereas like we were talking about, yeah, old leather pads, they get all the sweat, the moisture from the ice, and yeah, you're not playing butterfly in those. You wonder why everyone was playing stand up at the time. I mean, you would never be able to get up and get down and get up and get down otherwise.
Leather and horsehair and
exactly.
Yeah, they built how they were all built completely by hand. Yeah, it's just crazy to look back. I guess that's another question too. What's the oldest piece in your collection?
So the oldest piece I currently have is a Quebec Junior Hockey League All-Star game-worn jersey from 1951 that was worn by Marcel Paillet, who became a New York Rangers goalie for a while there, and then he also had sort of a last hurrah on the WHA. So yeah,
and that's
70
wool.
years. old school wool, yeah, and then the felt logos, and yeah, I couldn't wear one of those. I'm just looking at it makes me itchy.
Yeah, and really, you look at it and what? How are those guys so small?
Oh well, I mean, there's no way you have any padding underneath it. Like it's pretty much right on you at that point.
Sure, that little tight padding that they used. But it's crazy just to see again, to look through this and how big. Seeing a lot of stuff you post, and of course, as we know, everything of goalies is different size. How big of an area do you have to show this off?
So showing off is sort of another topic on its own. So like everything I have at home. It is a traveling museum that I have. So it's whatever the venue is that I set up, the the space in. So I'm efficient at storing stuff at home, which is very, very nice. And depending on the space I get or the space I rent for an exhibition that I have ticket sales for, I'm also efficient with the space, make it work very, very nicely. So I can have a big space, I can work with a tiny space. So that's all I can say for that.
Now, when you travel to do these exhibitions, have you had any pros or NHL reps or anything come to see this?
So I've had lots of people take photos of my various exhibits and then actually say that, oh, this is my uncle's friend or this is my cousin, and then they show it to them. And I've had a couple of former goalies who were guests at these shows come by and take a look, and I'm sure they're officials or someone else that I just couldn't recognize that might have seen it. Lots of people come by to see the items when I have an exhibition.
Well, and it sounds like, and again, from the pictures I've seen, and please go check out his website, because you and your all your social media, because the amount of stuff you put out, you're constantly out there showing off the new piece, and every time you post, it's insane to see what you've got next. And some of the names I recognize, and some I got to go look. I'm like, who the hell is that? But I love that you get into the deep story of why you have that piece. Okay, he was in the NHL for 6 minutes or whatever it was, because just showing, oh yeah, this jersey from this guy, that doesn't tell the story, but it's cool to hear some of that background. But heroesofthecrease.com, you and search social media, you'll find it everywhere. Some of the other things, what's your of any type of piece, what is your favorite to collect? Is it jerseys? Is it masks? Is it the pads and the gloves? Kind of what's your go-to thing?
So if I had a choice and an unlimited budget to go after what I most want, mask will always be number one. I mean, those are all works of art, and they're literally as close as it gets to the player. I mean, they're wearing it on their head. I mean, they're looking out through it to experience the NHL. So for me, that's primo, that's tops. Jerseys always come next because that's the one that takes most of the shots. Then pads, gloves, blockers, because they're still visible. They still have distinct designs, regularly very easy to photo match. And then it sort of goes down from there to sticks and then skates and pants and chest protectors, but those don't have the same eye appeal. They're not as nice. They're a lot more difficult to explain the story of a player when it's just a piece of equipment that's stock, like an old Brian's chest protector from the mid 90s. Like, it could have been anyone's, but you look at the mask. I mean, this is David Goverday's, didn't have a long career, FYI. Roberto Luongo's blocker, Bill Ranford's jersey. I mean, you see these and you're like, that's the guy, versus a chest protector where it's okay.
Yeah, it's cool, and if you're showing the ones from like the 40s, 50s, 60s, those age where there wasn't much to it, you look at it and go, holy crap, how did it not kill them when the puck hit them?
Oh yeah. Those
are cool to see. But yeah, you're right, the modern under stuff, it's like, whatever. I mean, it's kind of neat to see how tankish they are now.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, skate same way. As if it's really old stuff, okay, how did they stand up long term on that compared to the modern materials? And like in St. Louis right now, they have a traveling exhibit, and hopefully it gets up to Canada at some point.
Right.
But it's called The Science of Hockey. Mm-hmm. And they start basically with when hockey started. They show pucks that were made out of cow poop and
right. The frozen poop. Yeah.
Yep. Other materials like that. How the skates were started with using cow bones and then putting metal blades onto that. Seeing some of that progression is cool, because you can see how far it's come. But you're right. Some of the modern stuff the guys wear, if it's not something you're seeing on the ice every night or be able to look at a photo, people don't care as much. Even it's like skates are one of those things.
Oh yeah.
Or even
the way I look at them is they tell a story, but they tell a different story than the story of the players themselves. They're great for explaining the evolution of the game of hockey and the protection that goalies wear. And like that exhibit you were explaining, sounds like that's really their focus there. It's excellent, and it works for an exhibition too. But obviously the purpose that I have with the company is So it's not just an item. It's you hear the story. So you kind of, it helps put a face and a humanity to each of these items, which I think is so important.
And I think that's one of the reasons as I saw your stuff on social media a while back before we'd ever really communicated, and I sold you a blocker in that, but just seeing what you were doing, as any of us can pick up a jersey or mask or whatever, show it off. Yeah, I got, look what I picked up. But like I said, the fact that you really go deep into their story, that I think is what really sets you apart from a lot of people. I mean, we've seen some of the big collectors with big name players and stuff they have. Okay, yeah, if he did some great thing in this jersey, that piece is cool, but even you go beyond that. And you honor the guys that were a cup of coffee in the league, and maybe that was their only shot or their only 10 minutes in net, whatever it was. But I think that's really what sets you apart and how you're doing it. And I think that's what's really going to carry you really far. And people look back and go, wow, this is so deep compared to, yeah, he scored his 500th goal in that. Well, this other guy, well, this was the goalie he scored it on who only played this game, or those kind of things. And that's what I love about this. And again, maybe I'm partial because I play goalie and do collect a lot of goalie stuff, but I think it's just so neat to see the deep dive that you do.
No, appreciate it. And I mean, as I was alluding to earlier, I think every story is a story worth telling. I mean, you played 1,000 games in the NHL like a Martin Brodeur. I mean, that's his whole career is a story. But you know, you have guys like Tom Hodges, who made his emergency backup appearance last year for I think Anaheim, even though he was a Dallas practice goalie. So yeah, I mean,
all the e-bugs that have come along
exactly.
in the last little bit.
They're an amazing story in themselves, but even excluding e-bugs, which are just huge stories because how astronomical their odds are of making it. I mean, a guy gets recalled from the AHL and happens to play 2 minutes in a game. I mean, that's still, you know, someone living a childhood dream. And a lot of people like to say negative things about AHL or ECHL goalies, like, oh, they're, what was the word that people always use? Scrubs. That's the word people like to use in like hockey card terms. Or it's like, okay, I mean, these guys spent their life working their way up from their little mite hockey to their bantam to juniors. Maybe they went the college route and now they're second level or third level from the highest hockey you can get. And then, I mean, you play 2 minutes in the NHL. For those 2 minutes, you're one of the best athletes in hockey in the entire world. I mean, that's a story worth telling, their journey to get there. And also not just getting there, but what happened afterwards, because a lot of guys like to ignore what happens to the guys after. They end up in Europe, maybe injury unfortunately derails a career where someone could have been a 500 game guy, but just luck of the draw. And then what happens after they retire? Do they coach? Do they disappear from hockey? A lot of guys, they just vanish completely off the radar. So that's why every story.
Sure, and I guess that kind of leads into another question too. Is you're researching these, is some of the ones that are very minor, is do you have a hard time finding their story?
Yes and no. Of course, while they're playing hockey, it's pretty easy. I mean, a lot of these guys are hyped prospects coming up before joining the NHL, or overseas. They're accomplishing a lot before they ever get to North America. Otherwise, they're stuck overseas for their whole career. So that part is usually fairly easy. And I also enjoy storytelling, so I'm able to piece a good story together. All factual, of course, just able to make it sound a lot more interesting of a narrative and use their statistics and their yearly accomplishments to fluff it a little bit. Obviously, you have to make everyone sound good. That's the purpose, to make everyone seem like an excellent goalie. In terms of finding information, general information is easy. Very specific information of lesser known guys, like the very interesting facts, those are a little bit more of a challenge sometimes, but everything can be found. And yeah, you can
have you ever reached out to some of these lesser known guys, said, hey, I'm doing this write up on you, what can you tell me?
Generally not for the write-ups, but I have had some on my YouTube channel, doing interviews with them just to get a bigger side of the story than what I could ever cover doing a write-up or a little placard at a museum exhibition. So like I've had guys like Dietrich Kocken on my show who played for Minnesota and Tampa Bay, 21 games over like 3-4 years. Or I've had Mike Morrison, who was sort of the Oilers shootout king for a year and then got traded to Ottawa and then just kind of disappeared from the NHL. And Brent Cron, another good example, who's like a first round draft pick and he played one NHL game in his career. I've had him on. So that's how I usually like to make up where I don't have the story that I'd like. I try and reach out to them to bring them on to my YouTube show, and then not just hear the story myself and then update my write-up on my on my page, but also everyone else can enjoy the story and then see the human behind the mask, where it's not just looking at everyone like a hockey card, like, oh, you know, he's a plug, he only played one game. But no, this is a person who accomplished something huge, and hey, now we can all enjoy it together.
Yeah, it's like let's hear the story of why it was only one game. Was it what was it behind there? And that's, again, that's the fun part of all this. And anybody can go read everything on Martin Brodeur or Sidney Crosby or any Grant Fuhr or any of these big guys, but it's sometimes the smaller stories that come out in interviews, or the weird things that you hear happen. I follow a lot of St. Louis Blues, the radio, the guys that do that, and some of the former players that are on the radio telling these older stories. And it's a story I've never heard about Grant Fuhr. And it's like, why is this not out somewhere else? And why is this the first time I'm hearing it? It's like, that needs to be in a book, or that needs to be, I wish more of those things came out, and then it helps to even make that connection better. With collecting the jersey, and I'll tell you a funny story, and I'm kicking myself for not being there. Is 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, the Blues did a season ticket holder night before the season started,
right?
And they brought guys in the arena, pick seats and whatever else. Well, there was a store that they had thrown a bunch of jerseys in. Well, the people went in the store, and there was about a dozen or dozen and a half of the Blues clown style jerseys, like the one right behind me here.
Right.
There was a Grant Fuhr in that pile. Oh. They sold them for like $50. And it's like, one, who the hell thought that was a good idea?
Oh man.
But for the guy that picked them up, good for you. I mean, there were several big names in there, and it's like, did the team not realize, or just not care? If they'd have thrown that up on their auction, that'd have been killer money. But it's weird to see those kind of things, and oh yeah, we just sold it for $50. And I it's different with the modern stuff, but when it's again a Hall of Famer, a guy like that, we'll just throw it in the store
at an absurdly low price on top of that. I mean, for anyone that might not know, I mean, Grant Fuhr items are big dollar items now. I mean, junior game worn stuff of his is like anywhere from like $3,000 to $5,000. Oilers game used stuff of his, especially from the Cup years, is $10,000 plus. Like, these are big. Even Calgary Flames items, as few of them as there are out there now, they, for the longest time, they were maybe $1,000. Now they're popping same thing in the 3 to 5 range minimum. So I mean, to get one from the equipment sale for an absurdly low price from his Blues stint, especially that 1 year there where he played 79 games and would have played all the games if he wouldn't have gotten injured. I mean, that's craziness.
Yeah, you just, even at that time, I don't think I don't think there was many goalies that were running that many games in a season. I mean, that's killer. But just it's weird how the hobby works. I guess, and that kind of leads into a question: have you ever found something that was crazy low priced of anything you were looking for, like, or stumbled across it in a pawn shop or an antique mall, something like that? It kind of blew you away.
Generally with game worn stuff, I don't get that lucky with getting extremely good deals in terms of like pawn shops or thrift malls or anything. With sports cards, I regularly do, and then I do sell those and then use the money from that to fund items. So
smart man.
That way, exactly. It helps out that way. I mean, I found Oilers practice worn jerseys at like Goodwill for like $15, which, I mean, a practice jersey is, you know, $50 to $80, but still, to get it for $15,
yeah, to find a Goodwill is still a nice thing.
I don't know, exactly. I mean, I found Sil Apps Junior game used stick from the 1970s and antique mall for like $50. So I'd say that's probably the best game worn item from the thrifty world. In terms of online, I mean, there's lots of eBay auctions where people didn't know what they had and they just put it at their opening bid and then ended up winning it for the opening bid, and then obviously do the research and find out what it is after, taking a shot in the dark on like a supposed Denis DeJordy game used glove, and then did a lot of research to find out that, yeah, that was his from 1969-70.
Wow.
But I mean, it still had to pay for it, but still I think it was a
Sure.
good deal at the
You could
end.
have
Or
paid a lot more if people knew what they had.
absolutely. Or stuff like Yaroslav Halak's game used jersey. Like a guy took on a huge game used collection. He ran a sports card shop, got a huge Habs collection, which had guys like Theodore and Huey, and I'm sure there were others, but the Halak was the one that popped out and ended up picking it up for like $500 at the time, which, I mean, his stocks dropped a little bit since then in terms of monetary value, but still, for an NHL debut Habs piece of his, at that time, he was actually fighting Carey Price for that number one role. I mean, that's huge. Or Jordan Binnington's NHL debut jersey that I picked up right after his debut season. They had it up on eBay, and I just threw in an offer and they accepted, and I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
And of course, at the time, he only played one game, and it really was looking like he'd never play a game again. So that's why
And
I got him as a.
now we see where he took us.
Well, of course.
Thanks for that.
I have to buy all the one game guys for the collection, turn them into all Stanley Cup winners.
Hey, you can always hope. And it's funny too, because those weird hunts like that, and you mentioned Goodwill. This is going back probably 4 or 5 years ago now. Goodwill has now, of course, they had to get with the modern times. They'll put a lot of stuff on their online auctions,
Okay.
and I checked there off and on, and I found one time I found a pair of I think they were Team Sweden Olympic hockey gloves.
Oh
They
wow.
were marked as martial arts gloves for like $10. So I mean, brand new gloves, the nice with the Reebok logo, the whole bit. I picked them up and would always just check for reasonable price hockey gear, whatever. But one of the times I'm searching, I stumble across lists and lists and lists of LA Kings jerseys. And I'm like, I looked through it. They had uh, all kinds of different guys from this was 04 or 05 areas. So like Matthew Garan goalie jersey in there. They had I don't think they had a Craig Conroy. Jeff Cowan
Right.
was one of the ones. I was hoping the Pavel Dimitra from that season would show up in there, but I picked up like 4 or 5. They were like 125 a piece, and some other people found them, and then some of the prices went up. But I got these finally shipped, and they had both whites and darks. They still had the Kings shop tag inside of them with their price list of $400 or more. And I don't know if the Kings just got tired of messing with them and gave them to the Goodwill out there or what. But yeah, there was probably 20 or 30 LA Kings jerseys from most of them were 05, 06, and I think some 03, 04. But I mean, they didn't have set tags, but they were all written by the trainer behind the logos like they
Right.
did at that point. I'd had photo matches to some of them. It was just insane, especially to
Craziness.
see that many.
Oh, that would be like heaven if I found those at like an actual Goodwill location. Like I'd probably be that crazy person with like cart full of jerseys and people wondering what's wrong with me, but we all know what's wrong with me.
Every one of us would do that if we found that.
Exactly.
There would be no question.
Camp out in front of that Goodwill bin at like the midnight drop off, and then
Yeah, please get more to show up. And I've online. I mean, I found European League jerseys, and it's weird what shows up out there, and they're not expensive. I guess I'm giving my secrets of one a place to go look for jerseys now, but it's just funny how these things show up, and some people maybe they had them, or somebody passed away, or I'm just tired of having this. It's not worth it to me. I just picked it up because it was cool, and they don't realize that these have or can have a significant value to them.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I talk about that regularly with other collectors, especially with these like old jerseys, you know, going to the 50s and back, like the old wool sweaters. We don't even call them jerseys anymore, but like how many of them you imagine are hanging in someone's attic in Toronto and Brooklyn Americans jersey of a goalie who played a few seasons there. Maybe it was their franchise goalie, but no one really remembers. And then it's just in someone's attic, you know, collecting dust. It was their grandpa's, and you know they have a huge value item, both sentimental and financial value now, just
Yeah.
sitting and lying there, and you never know what's still out there undiscovered.
And some people might clean them out and go, yeah, this is tiny. It's not going to fit anybody. Yep, off to Goodwill it goes. And holy cow. Or they threw it in the trash and somebody finds it outside. And I mean, we still see stories to this day. Um, and even some of the modern stuff, with all following all the different groups, probably just like you do, is lately I've seen people posted, they went to a flea market somewhere and posted a jersey they found, their set stamp and all. And it was like a set one Columbus Blue Jackets jersey or something. And it's just, I paid like $30. I'm like, holy cow. I don't follow that team, but just to pick it up for $30, I'd love to add it to my
Oh
collection.
no, exactly. To get lucky like that, to find something and not have someone grab it before you get to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have all these right things, these factors working in your favor to come across it. Like I know whenever I go to flea markets or thrift stores or antique malls, or I make the rounds every few weeks just because I'm obsessed with hockey stuff.
And I found too, if you go in places like that, is this? And I'm assuming you have is drop your business card or contact info.
Oh yeah,
because
absolutely.
that's helped me. I had I'm in the middle of Illinois. Blackhawks are 2.5 hours away. Blues are an hour and a half. We don't. We have a junior team here, and that's it. So there's an okay hockey fandom here, but nothing huge. But I had a friend of mine reach out to me saying, "Hey, my buddy runs a pawn shop and just got all this blue stuff in. He doesn't have any idea what it is, value or anything. Do you mind going over there and taking a look and giving him some advice?" I went over there and it was a pile of sticks. There was Roman Turek sticks, Jamie McLennan, a few Al McGinnis sticks in there.
Oh, wow.
Bunch of cards, bobbleheads, signed pucks, all this stuff. And the guy's like, you know what? I don't even want to mess with it. He's like, just make me a cash offer, get it out of here. And I'm like, let me kind of do a little bit of research. Let me give you a call back in a few hours, took some photos and made him an offer. And I was happy to take it. I think I got a dozen sticks, some neat signed pucks from different people and late 90s, early 2000s stuff. And I think I paid less than $300 for all of it. But it's you don't come across those kind of things often, but it was neat to pick those up because I had watched every one of those players probably use those sticks or use ones like them, and that's the connection back for me.
No, absolutely.
It's fun just to, and as you put your name out at Goodwill or wherever, or the antique malls, hey, if you guys get these stuff, I may or may not purchase them, but I will gladly help you at least put a value to them.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I make sure to give the business card. Obviously, giving a business card makes you seem more professional than just the random guy who seems like they're there just to get a bargain and flip it for a 10 times profit, which of course, don't say anything bad about flipping. I mean, the world is built on commerce and making money, and that's how a lot of good pieces make it out into the world, is through that. But it's a story for another day.
Yeah.
So exactly, the professional business card and the professional presence. I mean, you get a lot more phone calls and you have people reaching out to you from the most unexpected sources, like even getting published in a magazine. A few years back, someone reached out to me to try and sell me some items that we didn't come to a deal, but it's just, as you said, getting the name out, getting the information out. It's just
that
a lot easier for
exposure.
things. Exactly, the exposure, a lot easier for things to come back to you, and then it makes life a lot easier when it comes to wanting to grow your collection, and also in terms of how much things cost buying in. I mean, if you're a guy who no one knows about and you want to buy it, people are a little more hesitant, and people are a lot more firm on prices, versus they know what you're doing is for a good purpose and they're a lot more likely to work with you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
All right. So now we got to go into the lightning round here.
Oh.
Only rule is you've got to, first thing that pops in your head, answer it. Other than that,
No pressure.
we'll go to town here. So any goalie jersey you could own that you don't have, doesn't matter current stuff, but what goalie jersey do you wish you could own?
Arturs Urbe's 2002 Stanley Cup final game worn Carolina Hurricanes jersey, the red one.
Why did I think it would at least be an Urbe something with that answer? Ugliest jersey you've ever seen or owned?
Oh boy. Haven't owned one, but those Burger King LA Kings jerseys from like 1995-ish, those just
Which are
abysmal to look
highly
at.
collectible, but they're ugly as hell.
Exactly
They make
collectible,
the
but
Blues Clown one back here look okay.
my eyes bleed looking at them.
Uh, Oldest piece in your collection? I think
Okay,
you
so
touched on this earlier, but oldest piece you have?
yeah, we'd mentioned that, yeah, 1950, circa 1951-52, Marcel Paillet, Quebec Junior Hockey League, game worn wool sweater.
Uh, Before you really kind of locked down to where this was going to be more of a museum and showpieces, have you ever traded or sold something you regretted and wish you could get back?
No, I haven't. I've always been firm with the collection, even from the beginning, in terms of what I wanted. So I've never really had any regrets. In terms of things I didn't buy that I should have, I got tons of those, but
Oh yeah,
again, a different story for another day.
exactly. What goalie would you love to meet in person that you have not?
Arturs Urbe, but since that's predictable,
Mhm.
let's go with Levente Super. He was a Hungarian goalie. He
Mhm.
dressed for the Calgary Flames as their backup for about 8-9 games back in 2002, 2003. I've had him on my YouTube show before, interviewing him, but I mean, the connection of both of us being Hungarian, meeting him in person would be such a huge thing for me. Even though he wasn't a superstar NHL, or doesn't matter to me. That's who I'd want to meet.
That's awesome. I like that because it's not a huge big name that people would know, but it's the connection that's important to you. And I like that answer better than really probably anybody else would have given. Now here's a little bit different weird one. It's hockey,
Oh,
but not.
okay.
Have you had Belfour bourbon?
I have not.
Um, I'm curious if I'm assuming it's made it through Canada now, but it is actually Eddie Belfour and his son spent 2 years in Tennessee learning how to make bourbon.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I actually have a bottle sitting across from me, and it is amazing.
Oh, okay.
But
I'm a
as a
I'm a
goalie
bourbon
collector,
guy,
I
so yeah.
was curious if you had tried that.
I don't recall seeing it at any of the old liquor establishments, but
Check it
I'll have
out. I
to
don't know
keep an
what it
eye
would
out
be
for
in
it now.
Canada. I think it's available up there, but in the U.S., it's about $70 a bottle.
Oh wow. So
But
good
it,
quality, yeah.
it's a beautiful bottle. It has his eagle logo on the
Right.
cork and everything. But I had to, as a goalie collector and a fellow goalie collector, I had to throw that in there to see if you had that.
Not yet, but it's on the list now.
I highly recommend it. Any final thoughts from you, and also throw out all your social media so people can follow you and check out all your stuff.
Okay, well, of course, thank you again for having me on the show. I mean, I always enjoy talking about hockey gear, not always just talking about myself and the company, just goalie stuff in general. Always a great time. Uh, Good luck, of course, with you and your podcast there,
Thank you, and
because
I appreciate you coming
you're only
on.
on episode 4 here, so it was a what journey starts with a step. So I mean, hoping you reach those tens of thousands, millions of subscribers and become a phenomenon. Um,
I'd be happy to hit 100 right now, so I appreciate
every little step on the journey counts.
Sure.
And then, of course, if anyone wants to check out the museum online, it's all online for now until we have events. Then we announce those as they come. But www.heroesofthecrease.com, or you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we also have a YouTube channel, all under the same name, Heroes of the Crease. And if you're following Instagram, now is the time to get into it, because we're coming up with a contest soon, because we just hit
Nice.
1,000 followers on that, so we want to celebrate. And
Yeah, definitely congratulations with that. Instagram's one of those weird ones where you either do good or nobody sees you.
Oh yeah, well, it just came as a wave in like the last month. It was stagnant for the longest time, and then just added a new weekly feature to the weekly lineup of different things I like to showcase, and then people just started following, and I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
And definitely go check out his YouTube channels. I've watched a lot of those interviews. They are fantastic, and I've seen Tommy Sutterstrom interview with some other people, and it's interesting to hear him tell different stories when he's done different interviews and that. So it's yeah, definitely go check that out. Hearing those older goaltenders is so cool. Of while the modern stuff's fun, the old stories are I think so much better.
Absolutely.
Well, Bruce, thank you so much for your time this evening. I appreciate it, and I will share this out so you can help me pick up people, and we'll send more your way, and
Absolutely.
we'll be in touch soon, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you. I'm going to plug a couple, and maybe we can even get you to some of these down the road. We do Jersey Expos all over the U.S. I don't know if you ever come into the U.S. much to do your displays.
Not just yet. Still kind of getting the feet wet in Alberta here, just trying to plan out a bigger tour. But as like sort of sort out the logistics a little bit more, then expansion is definitely part of the goal.
And probably just packing all that stuff up in a nice, safe manner to get it wherever you need to go.
Well, we don't even say the word safe now. Just packing it in general is a nightmare. I mean, that's over 250 pieces currently in the collection. It's pretty big.
So coming up here Saturday, September 14th, there's actually two in two different parts of the country. One in South Jersey at the River Winds Community Center in West Deptford, New Jersey. 40 collectors going to be there. You can go look up South Jersey Game Worn Expo for the details on that one. And the Minnesota Game Worn Hockey Expo, which is also going on the exact same day. So I don't think you're going to get between New Jersey and that in a hurry. But the Minnesota Game Worn Collectors Expo is in St. Paul. So you can look that up as well. The Minnesota Game Worn Collectors Expo. Every show I'm going to try and plug ones that are coming up. So be nice and get collectors meeting. I mean, it's great that us, Bruce, be able to Zoom and talk in this, but in person is so much more fun.
Absolutely.
But again, I appreciate all your time this evening, and we will talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.